I am so excited to have with me today Damien Pelliccione, who is the co-founder, CEO of Revry, but also the co-creator of the brand new first ever reality competition TV series, King of Drag. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Buck, so much for having me. This is really exciting. I'm excited to be here and talk to you more about the show. You were my first King of Drag interview since
Really?
we
Oh my gosh. Popping the cherry. I live for that. So first of all, I want to talk about Revry and this entire media platform that you've built. But firstly, I want to talk about the show.
For sure.
You just kind of talked to me a little bit about how you've been planning this for a long time. So talk to me about the journey. How did we get here?
So Revry, we've always had king representation in all of our original shows that we could. So like variety shows like House of Pride, which was our big show that we did in 2021 and 2022 with McDonald's, which was featuring drag kings, drag queens, singers, dancers, like just a variety of amazing queer talent that ran that spectrum. But intentionally, and I did most of the casting, we've always put kings as much as we could, put queens into all of our shows, even in our Queer X Awards, which is our cultural award show, always on National Coming Out Day, October 11th. Last year, not 2024, but 2023, we actually honored Marie as Best Drag Artist of the Year, presented by Wang Newton. But we've had kings nominated in that category multiple times before. We have shows like Queens of Kings, which is our kind of New York gritty drag docu-series. This past season, we've had Show Pony, God Complex, which are two of my favorite kings, and I will totally shout them out all the time. They're friends now, but I just think their artistry is so next level. And last year in 2023, we had the Cake Boys, who is this amazing drag king troupe out of Brooklyn. So kings have always been at the forefront. And what's really interesting is that we've been idea generating around this show since this March. It will be 3 years really that we have been idea generating around it. It was 2022 that I went to a drag king brunch here in Los Angeles, and it was it's since long gone, but like unfortunately, and I was with a bunch of group of friends, and there was like 2 settings of like 200 plus people, and it really, I knew drag kings, and again, we were always casting drag kings in shows before, but it really just proved to me that this is a hugely underserved market, and that kings, they've been my friends. I've known them for a long time. Like, they deserve their own platform, not even just being represented in mainstream shows, but their own show. And so Christopher Rodriguez and myself co-created the idea for King of Drag right after I was inspired from this brunch. And we started idea generating on what the show could be, even came up with the name King of Drag, and like immediately bought the URL and like the socials, and like, we're like, this is the brand, this is the show. And the way that we do things at Revry is we always try to, all of our originals, because we're a free to consumer network, which means that you do not need to subscribe to us. Unlike some of our counterparts, you can, no matter your socioeconomic background or where you live in the world, you can just turn on Revry or download it. It's always free. Now, how we monetize is you have to watch ads. That's what we do. We work with the big advertisers. And I think that's a fair trade-off. And so one of the biggest things is, just like some of our other originals, they're underwritten by brands like McDonald's or L'Oreal or Procter & Gamble. And for years, we were trying to pitch this to brands for underwriting, just like our other shows that we've had successfully. And we brought it to our New Fronts presentation, which is very industry, but New Fronts is kind of like where all the digital networks present to the advertisers all their new shows and opportunities to sponsor things coming to the network. We presented that in 2023 at our New Fronts presentation and teased it out. And this past year, we cast Marie Hill in that presentation. I'll send you the link after this because it's a real fun thing to watch. But we were trying to really get an advertiser involved, and none of them bid. So it came to the end of this year. We're at 2.5 years in. Let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's fund this ourselves. It's the first 100% funded original by Revry. And we're doing this completely out of pocket, which we've never done before because we're a small queer startup and network that's bootstrapped. And so we really we wanted to really bring this to the masses, and we've been developing this for a long time. And Murray is the king of all kings, obviously, and we can talk about Murray in a bit, but I've been friends with Murray for a while, and I presented this idea to him. It was like October last year, right after we gave him the award for Queer X in New York City, and we're sitting there having coffee. I'm like, Murray, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this, and you have to be the host. Murray and I have developed this really close friendship, and I absolutely adore him, and especially when you watch him on Somebody Somewhere, which is completely my favorite show ever right now, that is streaming on Max. Everyone who knows Murray is a super talent. He's one of the funniest people in the business, one of the most professional and just fun to work with, and has always been a massive advocate, obviously, for Drag Kings. So it was an immediate, obvious fit to go to him and say, I need you as this host. And Murray said yes. And, cut to our announcement just, last month, and not even last month. Oh my God, it's December 26th. I keep thinking I'm already a month away, but it's been like 2.5 weeks. And that Variety article came out and had this ripple effect in so many different publications. And, here we are sitting here talking to you today.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, like, it is all any drag king I know is talking about right now. Like, it is everybody, like, the entire community here has just been like buzzing about it. We have a couple kings here who are planning to audition, and I caught up with a few of them, and so I'll be talking with them as well. But it's so, like, the fact that this is really truly a show and a piece, like, by queer media, for queer people, for the queer community, self-funded, like, it's so magical, because it's something that we've wanted for such a long time. And I know so many drag artists have talked about wanting this for such a long time. You had said something about when you saw this brunch, and you realized, like, this huge potential. I think that there's this, like, something different and fresh and unique about Drag Kings. They bring this, they have something to say, and it's so loud. Like, their art, whether it's silly or it's fun or it's sexy or whatever it is, they have art that says something. They have art that has something to say. And I'm so excited to see, how that plays out on the national stage. Yeah. Moving into kind of talking a little bit about the show itself. I mean, I know the auditions are coming. Yeah. I think the 5th is the deadline. So what are you guys looking for?
Yeah, so Noga Wind is our casting director. They are the CEO, co-CEO, and one of the founders of the Queer Up Agency, which in Los Angeles, in California, in the States, are one of the biggest agencies that represents drag kings. Ironically enough, there's obviously a lot of management companies and agencies that represent queens. Noga is a good friend. I've known Noga. Noga was at that brunch with me March 2023, where we first made friends, and just maintained a relationship over the years, and always said, Noga, you're going to cast this when we make this, and is one of our associate producers. So Noga created that criteria that you see on the website. And it will be basically running all of the casting, which will run all throughout January. And a little bit into February. We'll announce our cast by February 15th, the latest. But what I would say is, look, this is our first season, right? And I wish we could have more, but there's only 8 spots for contestants, and there's only going to be 6 episodes, because that's all we could afford to do right now. That's not to say that that's not going to expand in season 2, 3, 4, and 5. Very much like Drag Race or any other reality show that you see on TV. If you go back to their first season, their budgets were tight and the episodes were tight, and even the amount of contestants were tight, and then they kind of build on there. I firmly believe that, done the right way, with the right amount of talent, we're creating a national stage and a national platform for drag kings to really have a spotlight. Because to your point, kings are not queens. And when I say that, I mean, I've had like my birthday party last year at a drag king brunch. Like, we support and sponsor drag king events. Speaking of which, we'd love to support your event up in Boise. We do little tiny micro sponsorships. So we've been in the community, not outside, and I hate to say this, outside of our own bubble here in LA and in New York, right? Those are the only 2 cities that we've really been able to make contact with. Of course, now we're making contact with so many folks, like you said, from all these other regional spaces. And we want to be able to support them. It's important to us to not just be someone who makes a show about kings, but we are actually one of our executive producers, Marielle Woods, who is very well known in the reality television world, has worked on lots of big reality TV shows. she, they are also a drag king. So even behind the scenes, we have lots of queer women, trans people, and drag kings who are working on the show. Moby Dick is one of our associate producers. I know everybody knows drag king history and all the amazing work that Moby has done over the years. Moby has been an instrumental force in helping us to create the show and be kind of our community whisperer, so to speak, and really get the word out with all of their social and their platform. We are, authentically for and by, and that has been a mission of our network since inception, which I'll talk about in a bit. But, what we're looking for is just the best of the best. This show is going to be unique because we are going to push the boundaries of what you've seen in reality competition shows before in the past. We are creating challenges that are specific to drag kings and drag king culture, and giving drag king culture, which we know it's pantomime, it's acting, it's not beauty and fashion runway. There's just an element of massive entertainment, and we want to bring that entertainment to the forefront. We want kings to be seen as entertainers, just like you see with queens, but what is unique and authentic to the way that kings perform, again, which is very different than queens. And we are very much in development to make sure that we are creating that authentic voice. So, we want kings who are taking this seriously and that want to make a career out of this. This is not your side hustle opportunity. This is, we're going to take you to the next level. So maybe you go on tour. So maybe you get booked regionally like Land Insider does, or Tenderoni, or any of the other big kings that are in the space whose full-time job is to be a drag king and run the circuit and start getting booked in big spaces just like drag queens do. That is our mission. Our mission with this show is to give kings a spotlight and create careers out of this show for drag kings, like I'm wearing on this shirt, to be nurtured, to be booked, and to have an opportunity to be seen and heard.
And again, I just want to reiterate the fact it's a show with drag kings on the crew. It is a show with drag kings in mind, because I think that a lot of the time people think, oh, well, why can't drag kings and queens share spaces, which they totally can. I mean, we have a joint competition here, obviously we share spaces, but the thing is having a king specific space created by kings with kings in mind. I think that that's going to be a catalyst for, you're going to see this huge resurgence, renaissance of drag kings, I feel, in the next year. And I think it's going to be magical because so many of us have never seen ourselves on TV. I mean, of course, Land Insider is kind of the one, Throb Zombie, and, I got to meet Throb Zombie, by the way. They're so sweet. I died. But, getting to see ourselves on screen, and not only getting to see ourselves on screen, but getting to see ourselves on screen in a variety of different styles and ways. You're going to see 8 very different people cast in this show, and that's going to be so, so cool. So I want to go back to Revry and the platform that this show is going to be on, because the fact that it's a free, one, money is hard, especially for a lot of queer people right now. And knowing that this is going to be on a queer platform with it's free, it's accessible. Yep. And I want to ask you, why is it so important that queer art is free and accessible? Why, and how is Revry part of that?
So that's a great question, and I thank you for asking me that, because I don't get asked this question a lot. From a social standpoint, and I'll be honest, when we started 10 years ago, we were on Vimeo OTT. We were on we were doing subscription for the first year, and it was because that's all we knew, right? We didn't know what we are is what we consider ad video on demand or free ad supported streaming TV. So if you're familiar with Pluto or Tubi or Plex, those are the bigger free to consumer, bigger networks essentially. We actually exist on all those platforms. We're on your Samsung TV on Samsung TV Plus. We're on your Vizio television on Vizio Watch Free. We started with fast and ad video on demand basically at the beginning. We launched on Pluto TV back in 2017, a free network. And what we realized within that first year, first we had an advertiser come to us, Lexus, who said, hey, do you work with advertisers? And this was before we were a year old. And we're like, yes, we do. And that's really what started the idea of wait a minute, we shouldn't charge a subscription. let's work with advertisers and let's make the content accessible to the greater good. And Revry is available globally. It's not just available here in the United States. We are not geo-blocked. Now, of course, there are some content and some titles, because we do license big studio movies from Lionsgate and BBC and, you know, some bigger networks. Those may not be available globally, but our originals are. So this will be available anywhere in the world. You just got to download Revry, you know, again, on any of those smart TVs, or you can do it on your app or on the website. You know, there's a multitude of ways you can watch. Just go to revry.tv, and it doesn't matter where you are, it's always going to be free. But our biggest thing was that, like, everyone should have the opportunity, regardless of whether or not they can afford a subscription, to see themselves represented. And we did not want to make this for the queer elite. We wanted to make this for the queer accessible, for every single queer person across the world. And I'll give you one little, like, a side story. In 2017, we licensed this queer, lesbian, half Hindi, half English film from Bangalore, India, called The Other Love Story. It's no longer on our platform, but we branded it as an original and had an exclusive release on it for about a couple of years. And for context, India decriminalized being LGBTQ in 2018. Cut to 2019, and we had so much traffic coming from India, and we couldn't understand why, other than equating it to this one great positive depiction of lesbian love in Bangalore. And it was in 2019 that I was invited to Kashish, the LGBTQ film festival in Mumbai, India, which I had never been to India. And I was like, oh my God, yes, this is my excuse to go there and to experience the culture and meet a bunch of queer people who are all in the same business that I'm in. And the opening night, I wanted to go for the whole festival. And the opening night was like all the ceremonies, and they invited some of the, like, the international guests just to come be like, hey, come see my talk or my panel, you know, this week. And I had at the reception this lineup of queer women who wanted to talk to me. And it wasn't, and I couldn't understand why. And it wasn't until like the third or fourth, like, queer woman who, like, shows me her Tinder. And I'm like, why are you showing me your Tinder? She's like, you don't know why. Hold on, let me show you. And she funnels for women who love women, because there's not an exact translation for lesbian. And every single image was an image from The Other Love Story, from our original. It was how queer women were identifying in a part of the world I had never been to, that we had never made contact with, that 2 years earlier, we just thought this was a great project to license and to put on the platform. So it was in that moment I started crying. I was like, oh my God, this is greater than an Oscar. This is like the biggest impact. It's when you start to realize as an entrepreneur, what you built is bigger than yourself. And so I immediately called my co-founders, Aaliyah J. Daniels, our COO, a Black, cis, heterosexual woman, but knows what it is to be marginalized as a woman of color. LaShawn McGee, our other co-founder, African-American, Army veteran, lesbian, and Chris Rodriguez, who's my husband, Hispanic and gay, and I identify as non-binary, and I'm an immigrant from Canada. So all different intersectionalities of co-founders. We're 4 equal co-founders. It's still that way. We have never changed that. That has been something that we have done since the beginning. It's been very important to who we are. It's what we talk about all the time, that this is not just made by queer men. This is actually made by a very diverse group of founding team. And it's our mission and our culture that we've created with Revry. And I called them and I woke them up like 15 hours earlier. And I'm like, guys, I need to tell you the story about meeting these lesbian filmmakers in Mumbai. And we all kind of like had a moment together, because it's in those times where you realize the mission is bigger than yourself, but it's also traveling to other places in the world. It reinforces why queer content needs to be free, why it should be ad supported. Obviously, we need to make money to be able to sustain and to create shows like King of Drag, but it reinforces that no matter where you are in the world, we need to see ourselves reflected in media. We need to see our stories told. There need to be shows like King of Drag and The Other Love Story, so people cannot feel alone and they can feel a little bit more supported and, you know, who their authentic selves are.
Yeah, it is that visual piece, right? It's that piece of seeing yourself. I didn't see myself in media growing up, and I came out very late in life. I mean, I'm not like, I'm 26, but I didn't come out until I was 23. I've only been out for 3 years. Yeah. And I think, I think about some of the kings that I know auditioning here. They come from small towns of like less than like 5,000 people. Like they come from like tiny places, and they've talked a lot about how they're so excited to like finally see themselves, because it's so important when you live in a space where you don't see yourself to see yourself recognized. So I want to talk about that representation. I want to talk about like the kings that live in like, because I don't know if you've ever been to Idaho, but it's rural here.
Just Sun
It's
Valley for a wedding.
okay, so you've been to Sun
Not to
Valley.
sound like bougie, that was the only experience in Idaho, and it was like 2006. I was there for a wedding, so it's a really long time ago.
Sun Valley is beautiful. But like most of our state, we have Boise, which is our biggest, that's our capital.
Yeah.
But most of our state is super, super rural. Like most of our state is made up of these like tiny, tiny towns. So Boise has our queer community here, which is bustling and robust. But some of the kings, I have a buddy who lives in Twin Falls, which is a town 2 hours over. They're the only king in their entire city.
Wow, that's crazy.
Like so and then there's kings, pockets of kings in Pocatello and pockets of kings in Idaho Falls. And there's kings, all over little pockets in these tiny, tiny, tiny little rural towns. And I think that when you think about someone who is alone like that, who is the only king in their area, the only person who does art the way they do, having this show, I think, is going to be a really big and important step for them.
That's so exciting. You're giving me goosebumps when you say this. You're just reinforcing to me. It's like that. It's like that woman in India who showed me Tinder. I'm like, you're reinforcing the need for something like this and the importance of something like this. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, for creating this, for putting the effort into Kings, because again, like we've wanted it for such a long time, and I'm so excited. So for you and your entire group of four, you guys talked about diversity being really important to you, and I think that the fact that the programming you choose, first of all, showcases that. And in King of Drag specifically, I mean, what are you most excited about, like in terms of like the diversity that this is going to bring? This is going to be a ton of different like art, different people, different backgrounds. Like, what are you excited for?
Look, it's so funny because like I think of all the kings that I'm friends with, and they're all so different in their artistry. Like no king is made the same, right? Very much like queens too. I mean, there are a lot of queens that obviously fall into similar categories, but again, I always think about two of my favorite kings, and I know I'm being biased here, but like Show Pony and God Complex. And if you don't know them, watch Queens of Kings season 5. There's an entire episode on God Complex, which is probably my favorite episode ever of the entire series. And there's one on Show Pony. Show Pony just kills it live. We've hired them for even like little shows that we've done in New York. They're Landon I love, and there's like on Throb Zombie because they do the horror king thing so well, right? And that's the only place like Dragula, the Boulet brothers, that gave kings a platform in mainstream prior, I think, to us creating King of Drag. I don't want to name names, but obviously like on the biggest show, there's still not been a king. And we've seen a lot of that shade, so to speak, in the press since our announcement. But like, we're really eyes focused on our own page. And for us, hopefully that does rattle a little bit of feathers, because again, like I think one of the most exciting things is discovering new talent and giving them a spotlight. That's one of the big, to talk to your point of like diversity for us and authenticity in the network and storytelling, like there is this world, this untapped, undiscovered world of stories of kings, like to your point, in small town Twin Falls, Idaho, that we'll finally be able to put a giant spotlight on, and hopefully create careers out of this show. My goal is that this becomes a big factory of careers for drag kings, very much like Drag Race did for drag queens. So it's time now for the opportunity to expand, for the stories to expand, because there are people waiting to hear this, to your point. It's not just here in the United States. We've been getting messages from drag kings in the UK and Canada and New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. Even I had like someone like seriously like send me a DM like video message thanking us. And I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. Like, I want to go to South Africa and come see your performance. Like, there is an endless need for this show to exist because there is so much talent to be discovered. We love being first. We were the first network to create a queer streaming network for streaming, and we were the first one to create it that was free. And I love being an innovator and a disruptor using technology and entertainment and storytelling. That's my background, and Aaliyah and Chris and LaShawn's. That's where we all kind of converge, where we get to kind of like fuck shit up, so to speak, and like really like do things differently. Because even though we couldn't sell this to an advertiser, and I bring it back to like the story of us trying to get this off the ground for the last, like, it'll be 3 years in 2025. We always knew that once, it's kind of like the old adage, once you build it, they will come. So it's like, we know that we just need to start building this, start the foundation of the house with this show, because we know that very soon, it's not just the audiences, and it's not just queer people who are going to watch this. We want non-queer people to watch this, just like they do with Drag Race. So they get into the culture of drag kings, and they go to a brunch, and they go to a show, and they start following the kings, and they start taking them seriously as an art form, as an artistry. And that, to me, is our mission with the show. That would be kind of the greatest gift that can come out of this. And we have a firm, solid, strong belief that that is going to be the end result in, you know, be it 1 to 2 seasons.
And I see it. I can see it. I really think it's going to just, I think it's going to spread like wildfire. I really do, because it's already like the buzz has been insane.
Wow.
Like here locally, it's all anyone is talking about.
Cool. That's so cool.
It's been crazy. And I wanted to, this is my last question for you. But, you know, say there is a king out there, you know, small town Idaho, or maybe even Boise, maybe they live in the middle of Wisconsin, I don't know. Say there's a king out there and they're on the fence about whether or not they should apply. And they're like, oh, I don't know. What would you say to them if they're in front of you?
This is what I would say to them. Now is your time. Now is your moment to shine. So seize it, you know, seize the moment. It's that, you know, I know that sounds so Greek, but like, it's true. If you're ever on the fence about never feeling like your art as a drag king is worthy, we are creating this to validate what you do and to create a career for you. So if this is something, and I want to reiterate that you are serious about, and I'm speaking to that drag king right now in Wisconsin, in Boise, in Twin Falls, in, you know, rural Idaho or Washington State, if this is the career that you want to forge for yourself and you're serious about taking this to the next level, this will be, if it's not this season that you make it onto, keep auditioning season over season. Don't get discouraged, because again, we only have 8 spots. But we're going to be searching and scouring for the best talent. And now is the opportunity to take your artistry to the next level and make this a career. So if you're serious about making it a career, we want you on this show.
Wow, that's a powerful message. And with that, Damien, thank you so much.